Happy Monday, my fabulous vibers. Welcome back to my podcast, where I believe that every woman deserves the freedom to craft the life she wants and the guts to go after it. We will share stories, facts, and opinions on various aspects of life to give you that kick in the ass to light you up and spread killer vibes every day, 24/7. Today, I'm joined by everyone's favorite guest, my husband, Rusk. People love to hear his perspective and what makes us such passionate travelers. We're talking a little bit about traveling today. And we're talking about travel in terms of how it changed us and specifically how it changed me as a mom. There was one travel that we took back in 2009, and it really changed me, and it really made me a very different person. When I returned, I didn't return the same girl that left. So I hope you enjoy our podcast and let us know what you think. Here we go. You know, part of what we're talking about today is a little bit about that visit that we had in Peru a few years ago. Maybe not a few, it's like 10, 11 years ago. In 2009, Rusk and I, we made a little trip out to, well, not a little, but we made a trip out to Peru. It was something that we had talked about for years, and we were like, oh, you know, every year for our birthday, by the way, we pick a place that we want to go to. I always tell you, babe, maybe back in like January or February, for July, my birthday is in July. This is where I want to go. And you typically just say, this is where we're going for my birthday. You don't give me like a lot of time. You just say, this is where we're going, get ready, and that's what we're doing.
Well, I've never disappointed you all these years.
You don't.
And I did have a little bit of experience in the travel business before we had met. So, and I learned a lot from other people traveling around the world. And
I think that's how we learned about all of these fabulous places, because your clients were very well traveled and well versed in the world, right?
And I've always had a keen interest in history and politics, and so you kind of put the two together, and then you always wanted to go see the places you read about. And then if you had clients, when I had clients and they were able to visit those places.
You know what, though? Why did we think of Peru, though? What was the idea behind that?
Well, it was Machu Picchu. That was Peru. I mean, it's a wonder of the world, and it not necessarily in the sophistication of the ruins, but in the location of the ruins.
Yeah.
And for those of you that have been out there know what I'm talking about, and for those that haven't, it's a very surreal, mystical kind of place when you do get there, especially in the mornings. When you walk outside of that little hotel they have at the top of the mountain to overlook Machu Picchu, right?
Oh my gosh, and I do remember arriving there and feeling the suns, that we were at an elevation that we were not accustomed to, right?
Yeah,
like that was very...
Right, it was up there, I think 10,000 feet, maybe 12,000, right? Right.
Yeah.
Air was very thin.
So we arrived into Lima.
Yeah.
Lima was our travel. That's where we landed. From Houston, we did was it 6 hours, Pumpkin?
It's a 5-6 hour flight.
5-6 hours, yeah.
They typically leave overnight, so you get there in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
So we didn't get to see much of Lima because the next morning we just hopped on a plane straight to Cusco.
Yeah, but you do. I do remember that when we got there in the evening time, we were greeted with a pisco sour, and that was our first introduction to a pisco sour, which was one of our favorite drinks now.
Now it was a famous drink of Peru, right?
We didn't know anything about that, but when we were greeted with the pisco sour, we were like, "Oh, what is this?"
I had my share of piscos by the time I got to Peru.
I love a pisco sour. I still, when I go to South American restaurants, I'm like that person that looks to see if their menu includes a pisco sour, and if it doesn't, then I'm like, okay, you guys are not South American restaurants.
Right,
You're not legit.
I like the bitters with the egg. Egg foam
the
on there,
egg foam, the egg white foam on the top.
Right.
Oh my god, that just looks so good. You know, but today the podcast is talking a little bit about how motherhood changed for me. In 2009, I had Alex in 2003, so he was 6.
Right.
And I had Max in 2007. So Maxie was almost 2 at the time. And I remember being that typical American mom where you read all the books,
Right.
you research everything you can about being a mom, you look at the milestones, you look at everything that they tell you that you need to look at. Are they, doing this at this time? Are they trying that at this time? Like, you look at all that. At this point in 2009, I remember looking at myself as like, oh, I'm an eager mom. I want to know everything. And what I knew about motherhood, I knew from my mother, from my own mother, who, by the way, I think is probably the most amazing mom that has ever lived, because she lived for her kids. Right. And also your mom, by the way, is someone who I look to as a mentor in terms of mothering, because if there's anybody that's more generous in the terms of a mother, it's your mom and my mom. So both of them were really beautiful examples. So I'm very grateful to have that.
They were housewives. They were mothers first and foremost, right?
Exactly.
They didn't have careers. That was their roles, right?
They didn't have careers.
Right. Well, that was their career.
That was their career.
I mean,
oh my gosh.
Career doesn't have to be
perfect.
Doesn't have to be justified by monetary compensation.
No.
Right. That was their career.
No.
Raising a kid is a career.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
It really is.
Right.
We just don't get promotions and we don't get paid. We don't get bonuses at the end when they graduate.
It's not a monetary compensation. You're compensated through other means, through other ways.
But you know what?
Legacy is one of them.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, that's why you have kids in this world, is to leave something behind. It's not an obligation to have a kid. No one's telling you have to do it. And the way you've been able to father our boys really is a testament to how good she was as a mother, and your father was as a father himself. I think the way that you've been able to parent our boys, and you've been able to handle their situations, deal with middle school situations, high school, teenage crap, I think it's a testament to how much they were so involved in our life when we were little. My mom she was a career housewife. It's really her thing. But here I am, a master's educated woman, thinking, oh my God, I have all the answers. And then I get to Peru, and then it's like, oh my God, I have no fucking clue what I'm doing. Because these women, so let's talk a little bit about how I came to achieving the motherhood shift. There's a paradigm shift that changes, and people always ask me, babe, they always ask me, what trip changed you? And I always say, Peru changed me. Peru. And I didn't think it was going to change me the way that it did. And it changed me in the sense that as a mom, I became a whole other woman and mother. Well, that's kind of what we always tell people when they ask us, why do you like to get out of your comfort level so much? Why do you like to go see the world, even though there are sometimes inconveniences, delayed flight, canceled flights? And I'm a very left brain, organized kind of person. I can't stand when that stuff happens, but I always say it's worth it, because when traveling to other parts of the world is a window and a mirror at the same time. A window where you get to look into other cultures and other societies and civilizations and learn something from it, and then come back and look at yourself and see how you can apply it to it. And I think for you, Peru was that moment where that actually reached its highest fruition in terms of the windows and the window mirror kind of theory of mine.
Exactly, because I think at the time the baby was 2, and I was very anxious about leaving him behind. I think that was something you and I were doing, and we were kind of testing out the waters and seeing if we could leave our kids behind and not be so freaked out about the fact that they were not with us all the time. But we had made a decision that the kids were not going to travel with us until they were 3 years old and they were potty trained. We were not going to take a baby on a flight. We were not going to be taking diapers. We were not taking bottles. They were going to have to be self-sufficient and potty trained.
Yeah, because we're very practical people.
We're very practical people, and we've always been very practical people from the beginning. So, the fact that I was leaving a baby behind with your parents, by the way, they stayed with your parents, and they always stay with your parents. And why? Because I just trusted the fact that they were going to be able to maintain a good schedule for the boys. Anyways. But arriving into Peru and being there and seeing how the Pachamamas, Pachamama, by the way, means Mother Earth. And so Mother Earth and Pachamama, it's something that is very, it's a philosophy that is included in South American countries such as Peru, Ecuador. And so Pachamama means the Mother Earth. It's a revered goddess of the indigenous people of the Andes Mountains.
Yeah. The Incans.
Yeah. According to Inca legend, Pachamama is an ever-present and independent deity who controls fertility. She presides over planting, harvesting, and she also causes earthquakes.
Right.
So this is before the Spanish arrived into Peru, and it was something that was a philosophy and a way of life for the women. And a lot of the women now, by the way, are very much protected in Peru. My hairdresser, who happens to be Peruvian, says that in school you are taught to revere the Incan women, and they're protected by society and they're protected by the government as well.
Yeah.
Because they are seen as valuable entities in society.
Yeah, a lot of these indigenous civilizations had a philosophy of giving back to Mother Earth because they realized they had come from Mother Earth, so they believed that they had to give back to protect and to look over them and to reside with them. It wasn't until the West encroached with industrialization and capitalism that that philosophy kind of had changed how it looks.
Exactly. So I think that's something that's really important to kind of point out is the differences between where I came from in a very capitalistic society, America, Northwest, Northern, the differences between what we encounter here and what we encounter when we head south and we go south.
Well, wherever it's west of Europe, geopolitically, it's the West.
Because it's also very Eurocentric here. I think we don't really talk about the indigenous people, which we discovered as my ancestry came back, that I have a 50% northern indigenous culture. Northern being northern Mexico, Sonora area, which I think it's sort of like why it touches me so much that I'm so
you can relate to that.
Involved with the indigenous culture. I think that's something.
You have a psychological symbiotic relationship with your roots, and so you easily relate to indigenous cultures.
Yeah, and I think the moment that I encountered the indigenous women, the Pachamamas, the indigenous women.
So what did you learn about the Pachamama?
You know what? So the first encounter that I had with one of them and like being there and being around them was that I noticed that they carried their babies on their back. And not just babies, toddlers.
Right.
And sometimes 3 or 4 year olds. And they're like freaking strong to keep those babies in their necks. They're heavy. Right. But they would carry them around, and everywhere they went, the babies came along with them, which is something we don't do here. We don't take our kids everywhere. Sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't. Like there's sort of like a stigma behind that.
Right.
But I remember seeing them like take their shawl off, and the baby just popping out and like running.
But also inside the shawl, the kid was very enclosed. It was
he was.
Or she. And they couldn't. They weren't able to see, obviously, to look out. And here we have these car. What do they call it? Remind me, the strollers.
The strollers.
Yeah, the strollers and all that. It's all designed so the kid has all this information coming into him or to her, learning as much as they possibly can. It's designed that way.
It's designed that way.
Obviously for an easy access, and because the science says the more information they have at a younger age, the more they'll be faster.
But the other thing you learn as you're a young mother is that you need to teach your kids to detach themselves from you and not be so close to you so that they can learn to sleep on their own. They need to learn to go and potty on their own. And that was the opposite that I saw in these Pachamamas. What I noticed is that they taught their kids to be independent, but whenever they needed something, they came to mom. And they were off. Honestly, the one thing that I remember most clearly and most strongly, and it stays with me till today, 11 years later, is the fact that these moms were calm. They had a peaceful, they had such a peaceful sense about themselves. They were not stressed. They were not worried about carrying milk around, snacks around, toys around with them.
Sure.
They didn't even care. The moment they took off their shawl, that baby popped out.
Right.
He was running and having a good time.
Yeah.
I didn't see her chasing that baby around at all. I saw her being happy and smiling that baby was running everywhere.
Yeah.
Typically, you would see these moms running after their kids and being like, "Ooh, helicopter mom!
Right.
I need to keep an eye on my baby. He's jumping up and he's like getting on a tree."
Right. Or bulldozer dads.
Oh, bulldozer dads.
Right.
So honestly, that to me, that was the calm. It was the space that they gave their babies to roam. I didn't see that coming back. You know, when I'm thinking about American moms, I don't see calm. I don't see stress-free. I see them running after them, reading their little book, saying, "Oh, their milestone. They didn't catch up a milestone. Oh my God, they're 6 months and they're not sitting up, or they're 2 years old and they're not potty trained." These mothers had a sense of their babies that I wanted to emulate so bad.
Yes.
And I learned that as I visited Peru. And when I came back to Houston, I decided to take that approach. It changed me.
Right, you did.
I thought about them.
We both did.
We both did. And I think we said, okay, if they're potty trained at 2, great. If they're not potty trained at 2, fine.
Right.
We're letting it go. We're not looking at these stupid benchmarks that everybody follows.
We mostly applied that to our second son.
Woo!
He came speaking a little later than the older one. He wasn't in the 95th percentile like his older kid was, his older brother was physically, and we just weren't stressed out about it anymore. We had learned that kids develop at their own age. Each child is
at their own little stage,
at their own process, and they're all unique in their development. But some of that comes from science, right? You have to learn that from science, or somebody has to do the studies and tell you that if you have 1,000 kids and then you put them in, you can't put them all into the same category. Think that they're all going to be potty trained by 3, even that's what the books tell you has to be done by 3. What you learn from the Pachamamas is that you just have
let the process take its time.
Exactly, let the process take its time.
But the other thing that I need to just mention to moms and their young mothers and their stress and they're worried about it is just really letting their kids just be kids. And not a thing that you have to schedule them every day to have them be successful, and not think that you have to have a plan for your kids in order for them to be successful. I don't see that. You know what? Honestly, honey, I am very proud that the people who come to us and say, your kids are so well-mannered.
Yes.
They're so well-behaved.
Yeah.
They have a respect for adults. Mm-hmm. They have a good sense of themselves.
Sure.
They're not boisterous, gregarious, crazy. And our kids could be, because honestly, our kids have been everywhere and they could be like super spoiled and like crazy, but they're not. Yeah. It's testament to the fact that we changed our parenting very early on.
We did. We caught on to it really quickly.
We did.
We didn't take the cookie cutter approach where they had to go through high school. That was obvious. Mm-hmm. And they had to go through college, and then we had this whole picture, this whole life painted out for them. They're gonna have a house, they're gonna have cars, and then you start realizing that's not what life is about. Life is about, sure, that's part of life. That's a component to some of these things, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about happiness. It's about relationships and the people you know and who you're able to share your experiences with in life. And I used to have the idea that my son had to make a lot of money, and because that kind of bought you certain things from a material standpoint. But money makes your life comfortable, no doubt. I think anybody that doesn't have money will probably tell you they could always wish they had a little bit more. Nobody wants to live paycheck to paycheck and worry that they're going to lose their jobs. But then it also reaches the other end of that threshold where if you have too much of it, then you don't know what you want to do with it, and it's no longer buying you happiness, because material only gets you so far.
And And I think we just sort of said we're going to forego all the checklists,
Right.
all the benchmarks. I remember throwing all the books away and just saying, screw these stupid books.
Right.
I'm not following those books anymore.
Yeah.
I'm going to be an instinctual mother, just like I learned from the Pachamamas, that it was going to be instinctual. And if I felt it was going to be good, it was going to be okay for my kid. And if I didn't put him in like 5 freaking classes, it was okay.
Right. We had.
Yeah.
I recall. We had put our older son in a private charter school. And that was a charter school. It was a private daycare kind of school.
Yes.
And I remember the teacher had overheard me once saying, "Come on, big buddy, let's go."
Yeah.
And then she had said, "Excuse me, Alex's father can't talk to you. I don't think you should call your son Big Buddy because you're labeling him." And I remember coming home telling this is what we're paying for.
Yeah.
Is that we're worrying about, I wasn't abusive to my son. I didn't call him a bad name. I just called him Buddy, which is another term of endearment.
Big Buddy, which
he was just my buddy. And I'm feeling like I have to pay for this kind of education that I'm teaching him. First, she had no business telling me how I need to be a parent. Her job is to teach him the times tables and how to read and write. What I want to call my son is my business, but even from that standpoint, I have to pay extra on top of what I was paying in property taxes to get this kind of education. I said, we pulled the kid out.
Pulled him out.
Never back to a private school.
Never did it. We never went back to private after that, ever.
Because you would figure under a private school system, you would get higher order thinking. That's something I would have maybe expected from a rookie teacher that had just come out of school, that had all the latest and greatest scientific information, not any practical experience. But she was a veteran teacher, and I found out to be, I just found it not only to be inappropriate and out of line, but it's not. I just thought that she's not going to be doing her job if she can't even understand how insignificant my comment was.
And honestly, that to me goes back to the idea of going back and looking at motherhood. And for me, again, motherhood is very different for most women. I don't see it as something that is like life consuming, and more like my kids adapt to my life and adapt to our life. I think a lot of the moms nowadays are like, oh my gosh, my kids need to be doing this, need to be doing that. I think a lot of times we really worry about the wrong thing, and we think about the wrong thing, and we think, oh, we need to have these kids adapted to so-and-so, and we need to make sure that they're in this so-and-so class. My kids are not in any of that. My kids are not the type of kids that you're gonna find in every classroom, but they will be the kids that will bring in a perspective that you've never heard about. They will be the kids that will come in and say, oh, wait, I've seen things this way, and this is how it's worked out for us. And I think that's a really beautiful place for us to be in. We're so proud that we were able to learn from the indigenous culture in the Andes and the Pachamama culture, and the reverence to the Mother Earth and the respect to the Mother Earth. Because I think a lot of American kids, they take on this idea that they're the shit. No, little fucker. We're the shit, and you are our kids. And you need to take on our life, and we're the ones dictating shit to you.
And I think that's, I completely agree with you. And I think that a lot of these kids, particularly, are raised in this country under the impression that they think we have the greatest military or the greatest sports teams or the greatest athletes.
Everything is the greatest.
It's the greatest, and we are an exceptional country, but we have so many things wrong with the United States. And it's definitely, I wouldn't exchange this country, don't get me wrong, to live anywhere.
No, we've been everywhere. We've been all over the world.
So we can tell you it's a great place to live.
For sure.
But to think that because we have a great military, a great sports team, makes us great people, it does not. It does not make you great people. Great people is how you treat other people, the relationships you have, how there's equity in the system. Sure, there's cracks. It's never perfect, but you always have to strive. We're regressing in this country, and I think what traveling does, and for example,
absolutely. Thank you for mentioning
that. It gives you that perspective. It gives you that holistic outlook on life of what you can do better as a person, and what society can do better collectively. A lot of folks from, particular political party, they get on cruises. They get on, they go to only places that they're comfortable
Mexico.
with.
They go to Mexico because that's all they know.
That's a 51st state. And there's nothing wrong with Mexico, but branch out.
Yeah.
Try to do something uncomfortable. Go to a place where they don't speak English. Go try foods that you've never tried before. And just go see how other people live. And you'll find out not only do they live with less, but they're also happier with less.
Exactly. And I think that's the lesson for today, and the podcast for today is that you've got to see how other women mother their babies in other countries. Stop the idea that the only way is the way we have it here, and that's the only thing that is of value. It is not. I will tell you, and I will be the advocate for you to say, hey, I want to learn how other women mother their babies and take care of their babies, and not to stop at the point where like, oh, I've got to make sure my kids have everything they need. They don't need any of that, to be honest with you. They don't need any of the materialistic bullshit that the Americans buy into. Honestly, if your kid isn't going to Harvard, okay, he isn't going to Harvard, she isn't going to Harvard, she's going to UT, a fabulous, amazing, fantastic school. U of H is a wonderful, amazing institution. Stop buying in to what you think the ideal parent, the ideal situation is. I don't buy it. I don't think it's purposeful. And honestly, not all of our kids need that in their life. My son is a creative source. He's so right brain that I can't understand him, but honestly I am grateful for that because I'm learning how to deal with the right brain kid. He is so creative, he's so artistic, he loves doing things in the artsy fartsy way. Maybe I don't understand it, that's okay. I'm not here to judge him. I'm here to guide him as a mother. And that's where the Pachamamas fall in. They learn to just give their babies their space. They give the babies the time to develop on their own and to be their own little human beings. There is nothing that we can say because it's a lot of nature and there's a lot of nurture. Honestly, ladies, if you're a mommy, let your babies be. Let them guide you because they know what they like, they know what they don't like, and you will adapt to their little idiosyncrasies.
Right. Yeah, create parameters for your kids.
Yes.
Don't micromanage them.
And then feed their interest, feed their passions.
Yes, and don't overdo it with 5 different sports. My personal
not.
Get maybe 1, maximum 2. Let them get good at something.
Yeah.
It's better to be good at one.
I know, the American way is to give them 5 sports that they can do, and then they fucking pick something.
Right.
Give them one thing that they're good at.
Yeah, be good at something instead of being mediocre at 5 different things.
Thank you.
Right. I agree.
I'm so grateful that you're here today.
Thank you for inviting me again. I enjoy these.
Honey, I invite you because you're my number one. You're my number one. So thank you, everybody, and I really appreciate you all listening on us. And if you're a mom, we want to hear from you. We want to know what you're thinking. We want to know where you are in the process. How are you dealing with teenagers? I can say where we're dealing with teenagers. Yeah. Can we just say dealing with teenagers is not easy?
No, it's definitely probably the hardest part. And we knew it was coming, and that's why we spaced our kids apart.
Yeah, we did.
We had them 5 years apart, so we didn't have 2 teenagers, so they weren't learning to drive at the same time, weren't in college at the same time. Insurance didn't skyrocket at the same time, so we practically and systematically did it. So our older kid's a great kid. He has his moments, but it can always be worse. And
our older kid is a very right brain. He's very artistic, and Rusk and I are very logical based.
Yeah.
So we have to really like, manage him. But that's okay. We're learning as we go.
Yeah, it's a learning process like everything else.
But I just want to say thank you so much, you all, for joining in and being a part of our podcast and giving us your feedback. If you're a mother of a young boy who's just trying to make a way in his life and just trying to figure things out, I want to hear from you. I want to know what you're thinking. We want to know what you're thinking. Rusk and I work as a partnership. We work as a team. And so everything that we do in terms of like parenting our kids, we really discuss things together. And we don't just go my way or his way. We really try to find a middle ground and discuss things as we go along. So definitely let us know what you're thinking. We are so excited to have you guys join us on this podcast. Tell us if there's a subject that you want us to encounter and just discuss, because we are so happy to just be out here for you guys and just determine what you want to do and what we can talk about. And we will research and we will determine how much we can express things, because for us, all of this is so important. Discussion is important. 2020 has been a very challenging year, but we definitely want to make the best out of it. So, honey, thank you so much for being here and talking to us about it. And love you guys. Keep us posted and tell us what you think. Thank you.